But what are we actually here to talk about today? Not me. We're talking about CiviCRM context and Drupal users, and we're going to talk about how the various methods you can use to make them in one step. But probably the first question that somebody's going to have is what's the difference between a CiviCRM contact and a Drupal user? And certainly if you are new to either of these systems, that'll be a very reasonable question to have. So let's first talk about CiviCRM. CiviCRM is a constituent relationship management system, and it allows you to track your interactions with contacts that are in CiviCRM. Those interactions can be people attending events like you're doing right now, or when you send emails to someone, or if they have memberships, and a lot of other unique features that probably aren't going to be used by most people on this call, given that I do have an idea what both of you do, but a lot of those other features you aren't going to use. But we do have Civi Case, for example, which is a way to manage cases with a connection to one or more contacts. An example of this could be a complaint form about another contact, just to give you an example. But a contact, you hear me say that word a lot with Civi, is kind of the basic building block of CiviCRM. So what type of contacts can you have in Civi? Out of the box, you're going to have individuals, which are individual people, just like all of us on this call. You'll have organizations. Organizations are who you may work for. I'm an individual. I work for the organization Square, as an example. And then you have households. Households are very useful for where you may have to manage memberships, for example. So in my case, my household, I kind of just showed you. My daughter, well, she's not in my household now, but my daughter, our dog, and my wife, that comprises a household. A pretty good example of a place where you can see households being used now that most people will know is like Amazon Prime, how you can have your Prime membership shared with the people in your household. So those people, like in my household, I have a login to Amazon. My wife has a login to Amazon. My wife pays for the Prime, but she shares it with me. So under Amazon structure, she and I are in a household, which is a different type of contact to the individuals, which in that case is me or my wife. So then we have Drupal users. So keep in mind, Drupal is a content management system. So this is really a system that allows users to publish or edit or remove content from a website through a web browser versus back in the day when we had to do everything through code, which was miserable. So a user would be anyone who interacts with your website. You, out of the box, you're generally going to have three kind of big categories of users. Your anonymous users are people who you don't know. They are not logging into your website. You have no idea who they are. So if right now you go to Amazon and you are not logged into Amazon, you are an anonymous user. We have authenticated users. That's someone who has logged into your website. An example, again, using Amazon, when you log into your Amazon account, you now are an authenticated user. And then we have administrators. Possibly everyone on this call is some form of an administrator with the website that they interact with, but an administrator is just somebody who has some form of elevated rights. We generally have a specific role in Drupal called administrator that is a full rights, but even those other roles are some variation of an administrator, just with fewer rights to do things. So that could be the people who go in and set which page is going to be the home page of your website, as an example. Or they may have the ability to go in and build web forms and decide where to place them on the website. Things of this nature. Varies from site to site. So let's talk about creating both. We're going to use Drupal and CiviCRM together, which is one of the things that we at Square build a lot of, to do both of them. And we have different places where we can do this. We can do this through the Drupal registration form, which is very standard Drupal form. We can create contacts through CiviCRM. I put this in red because I want to make the distinction that does not actually create a Drupal user if you just do it the basic way through Civi, but there is a way to do it. We can also use a CiviCRM profile standalone form. We can use the Drupal registration form with the CiviCRM profile form, we can use a Drupal web form handler, and we also have an extension called CMS user. And I'm going to demonstrate each of these for you now. Are there any questions so far? No? Okay.
Nope.
Cool. Let's jump over to. Okay, so now you should be looking at a website. This is a standard Drupal website. There is really nothing special to this. This is pretty much out of the box how Drupal starts the day. I am not logged in, and you can see because we have a little login window here. So if I go to login, I'm not logged in yet. So the first thing I said I would demonstrate is just creating a new account. So we're gonna go here and we're just going to click on create a new account, and I'm going to give it, let's go with this one. We're going to give it an email, and we're going to give it a name. We're just going to leave everything else standard, and we're going to create a new account. Now, once I've done this, we have this message telling me I'm going to get an email. I will get an email that I can then use to log in. I see the little number just lit up there. But what I want to show you on the back end is what that just did. So first, if we go to people, we can see here's the user. The account's been created. It's never been accessed because I haven't signed in yet. And if I go into edit, you can see this is an authenticated user that has no other special roles. So next, we'll go over to Civi. Oh, like I said, it's a fresh install. Here you see when I started searching, that email address I just used came up. And you can see here is that contact record that I just created. But you'll notice there's not a lot of information here. It's just the email address. That's all it knows. There's nothing else to this. Something to make note of, if you're not already aware of this, is over here, when you see these two numbers, if there are two numbers, the second one, which is a link, means that there is a Drupal user account associated with it. So if I click on that, it's going to take me back to Drupal, and I can click edit, and I'm back in here where I can edit that. Okay. Well, let's go back to the start here. The second thing I was going to show you is creating a contact just through Civi. So if I go over here to Civi and I go to new individual, I get this form. And I can fill this form out. We're just going to put in a first name, a last name, and an email address. And that's all I'm going to put in there. I can go down and I can check for matching records. It'll tell me there's no matching records. If I had used the same email address that I had used previously, it would have come up and complained at. But it knows that this email address is not in there yet. I'm going to save. And now I can see I'm at this contact. And the reason I wanted to show you this was, notice there's only one ID here. This method does not create a Drupal user account. This user does not exist in Drupal. So this person does not have a way of logging into Drupal. And we can go over here just to show you. You can see not there. It would have been the first one if it was there. But we'll also just show you, filter by that email address, does not exist yet. Okay. So you might use that if you have contacts who you want to put in your system who may not be in your website, may not be logging into your website, may not be users yet. Okay. All right. So now let's go into using a standalone profile form. And we're going to go back to Civi. Just real quick to note, the Civi menu up here, I know this thing is overwhelming, right? I know that profiles are over here because I prepared for this presentation and I went to it a lot and I remembered where it was. You'll notice on the Drupal side, I go right to things a lot because I've spent a lot of years in Drupal. But Civi is kind of overwhelming. Just so you know, if you don't know where to find something, go here, hover over this little triangle, and this will pop open, and you can type profiles, and it'll take you right to it. And trust me, that'll save you a lot of frustration in the long run. Okay. Okay, so we are going to do the profile form. Now, I already set up this user registration here, and they're not really hard to build. When you add a profile, if you click add a profile here, you get the same thing that you're going to end up with here, where you can add fields. And you can see we already have first name, last name, and email addresses here. Okay. The one thing I am going to do is check the settings here. So when you create one, you're going to give it a name. And you're going to go in and you're going to have to check what you want it to do. What I want this one to do is act as a standalone form. So what that means is that this is just like a web form. It's just a form that the users can fill out. Okay. The order number is going to automatically be set, but you can change the order number, but you don't really need to in this particular example. We're going to go down here to advanced settings. Of course, you do want it to be active. And this is information that you can add to the form that'll show before the form the form fields, after the form fields. You can also have it redirect somewhere after they've done it, after they filled it out. Say you want them to fill it out and then redirect to the home page. You can do that. This is including a cancel button, cancel redirect, cancel text, submit text. None of this is required. You can add reCAPTCHA to this form. And if you are using reCAPTCHA, if you have a standalone form, it's pretty good idea to have reCAPTCHA. We've seen an increase in just bots going around and filling out these forms. So it's a good idea to have reCAPTCHA if it's available. This right here, it says Drupal 8, but this is applicable to any of these. If you're on Drupal 10, you still need to worry about this part right here. Out of the box, it's going to say no account create option. You're going to want to say account creation required. What that is saying is that when this form is filled out, create an account. You have the options here on what to do if there was a match. You can see it's pretty understandable there. Proximity, we're not worried about proximity because we're not doing any mapping here, but this is about addresses and things of that. So we're going to leave all that as it is. But for this particular thing, we want standalone form and we want account creation required. Now I'm going to click save. Like I said, we've already put the fields in. We're not going over how to do that. We've already done that. So now I'm going to go back to my profiles. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to get this use create mode. And we're going to open that in a new tab. But what I have to do here is I'm going to copy this. Because if I fill it out right now, it's me. It knows I'm logged in as me. So it's not going to work for what I'm trying to show you. What I got to do here is I've got to log out. I think make sure let me log it. Yeah, it's going to go back to home page. Go back to it. So you can see how it's slightly different now because now it says you need a username, right? So now let's do just for fun. See what it does when I say Cora. It's going to say that username is taken. You can't use it because remember in the first one I created using this name. So let's go with, now we're just going to make it easy. We're going to go with 10. Check availability. That one shouldn't be used. That one's not used. All right. I'm going to just fill it out. And if I don't put that plus 10 on there, it's going to come up and complain to me. Okay. And press save. I didn't put anything in that redirect, so it's leaving me here. All right. But now I just saw the email go off. I've got an email to create the user account, and I'll just go over to my email real quick, copy that link, drop it in here. So now it's asking me to log in as that individual. Instead of doing that, though, I'm going to go and log in as me so that I can show you that, in fact, all that was created. So there's that account. You see I haven't logged in. And again, I didn't ask for any roles to be added. So this is still just an authenticated user. We go back to Civi. Go away. Do that. And you can see here's the account. And once again, you'll notice it has two numbers over here indicating that this one does have a Drupal account. Okay. All right. Drupal registration with a CiviCRM profile. So Drupal registration was the first form that we looked at, but now we're going to add a profile to it. And the reason why we're adding a profile to it is because we want to collect additional information. So I'm going to go over here. We already have this name and address one. And I think that one's just automatically on all the websites that at least Square built. It may be just in Civi by default. I'm not positive. I'll tell you, I've never seen one that didn't have this form already built. What we have to do now is we'll go in, just to go back. Sorry, let me just go back. Again, if you were starting it new or if you wanted to change, you can see all the fields that are on here. First name, last name, street, city, postal code, country, and state. Okay. You can reorganize these, you can add to them, you can remove them, whatever you need to do in there to make it what you want it to be. So now we're going to go into the settings on this one. And you'll note it is also a standalone form, but that's not what we want. We want this to be a Drupal user registration form. So we're going to check this box right here. Going down here, we're not going to do anything here because we've already added it to the Drupal registration form. That means that Drupal is already creating a user. So we don't need to tell it to do it twice. We would only need to have it here if we wanted to use this as a standalone form, which we're not going to do. We're going to use this as a Drupal user registration form. I'm going to save that. And we're going to go back to home. I'm going to log out. I'm going to go back to log in, create an account. And now you can see I have all those fields that were just added via that profile. Now it is already pre-filled because I used it for testing, because I did that a while ago. So we're just going to add to it. And now we can add that additional information here. States. I hope it doesn't care that that's not a real zip code. I don't know if it's a real zip code or not. And we're going to create a new account. Okay. Now it's telling me again that I should get an email. So far, I have gotten all those emails. I'm expecting they'll be there, but more importantly, I'm going to log in, show you. So now we go to Drupal. Yeah, there's the email. I just got it. So you can see that's Corbell 10, hasn't been accessed. Go to edit. It's an authenticated user. None of these have been set. We'll go to Civi. This, by the way, is because there's an update that's supposed to be coming and it hasn't been released yet. So we keep getting these messages. Kind of annoying on these fresh installs like this. All right, so we're going to go back here. That's this one. Okay, and now you can see the actual name is here. And you can see the address that I gave it is here. And again, there are two numbers here. 43 being the contact ID for Civi, 24 being the Drupal ID. If we go back, just to note, the first time I did it, remember I did it without the profile. So that first one only had an email address here. It didn't have the name. Because I added the profile to it, the user was able to enter the name when they did that. Okay. Again, jump in if any questions. All right. Web form handler. Now this one is probably the easiest, and it's also our newest. And I say our newest because we have a developer who just put this together not that long ago. So we can go in to web forms here in Drupal and create a web form. I already did this. Which one did I do? I think it was this one. I already built a couple of web forms because we weren't going to go over web forms today. All this one has is your name and your email. If I go over to the settings and I go over to the email handler section and I want to add a handler, I can add this handler, user registration, add the handler. I want, it's just called user registration, doesn't need to be called anything else. I want it to create a user, so I've opened the user creation. I do need to tell it the role that I want the user to have, and I need to ask it to sync with Civi. I also need to go in here and do this mapping. So the username will be their name, and the email will be their email. So this is saying, what's their username going to be? Whatever they put in as your name. What's the email going to be? Whatever they put in for the email. You can add conditionals. There are some advanced settings, but we don't need either of those for this purpose of what we're trying to do here. I'm going to save. And go back to the form. So this is the form. You can see it's already got my information in here because I'm currently logged in and it knows who I am. So I'm going to have to get that URL, log out, go back in. And now, before it gets in, now let's give Nelly an account. We haven't done Nelly today. I have a set of test users I use on all of them. So that's why my web browser keeps trying to fill all that in. Okay. And I'm going to register. That's it. And you see it's telling me I'm going to get an email here in a minute. We're all done. I'm going to log in as me. And then we're going to go check people. There's Nelly. She has an account. Because I checked authenticated user. She's an authenticated user, but I could have checked one of the other ones. Yep, my little email just went off. I got that email. We'll go over to Civi. We'll get rid of that thing. And we should find Nelly right there. And there we go. Nelly's got an account, 2 numbers with the link back to the Drupal profile or back to the Drupal user page. Okay. All right. One more is CMS user. This one's a little bit more complex, but I kind of like it more than the other ones. And I'll show you why. So we go over here to Civi, and we're going to go to, we're going to do it right here. Just like I told you is easier. CMS user settings. There we go. This is an extension that was developed by one of our developers, Sunil, quite a while back. And I really like it for a lot of reasons. So first, you're going to give it the username pattern. This is what we usually put in there. So it's first name, last name out of the box. You can look up tokens over here and use other tokens to put in here to have other patterns for the username. You have an option about notifying the user here. So that would be sending an email to the user. You can assign roles to the user here. They're going to be authenticated automatically. So these are additional roles that you can give them. You can have it create the new user immediately, which is usually what you want. You have it log in, allow for existing, a lot of different things you can do here. The Drupal user fields. This, so on a site like this, we don't have that many fields from Drupal on the profile. If there were fields added, we might have them here because then you can select the token from Civi to map it to. I'm not going to really go over that here, but just know that is there. This is the two neat. This is where it gets neat, though. It's down here. The way this works is if a user in Civi is added to this group, this new CMS user group, it will create the CMS user for them. Or you can use tags to do it. You can also use it to have them as a part of a password reset through here. Okay. Doesn't seem like much right now, but we're getting there. So now we're going to go back to I'm going to go back to web forms. And again, I already have one here, this new user web form. We're not really going over how to build a web form. But if I were building this out of the box, you know what? This is a small group. Let's just do that quick, actually, so you get that little extra in there. So if I was building this out of the box, I'd go in and I would go to CiviCRM tab, and I would enable CiviCRM processing, and I would select what I wanted to have. So existing user, first name, last name, I want those. I go down here to email, and email. This is going to be main. And then I'm going to go to groups. Yes, I want to add this person to a group. I want them to be in the new CMS user group. Okay. Press save. Build, make sure it looks like what I want it to look like. It does. I'm going to go view this web form. So you can see it's filling in some of my information because I'm logged in and knows who I am. And that's great. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to copy that URL. I'm going to log out. Go back to it anonymously. Let's see. Now you get another one. Yep, not there. Yep. Okay. Everything has been done there. I'm going to get an email. Oh, I already got the email. All right. So I should now be able to log in as me, and we should see everything again. They repeat. Oh, you know what? I may have done something wrong. I just realized that email may be telling me something else because Nelly already exists in the system. Shoot, but that's telling me something else. Let's go back and do that again. I apologize. I got a little ahead of myself. Go back to that. Let's do that one more time. That email must be something else then. Okay. Now, that should have done. There we go. Now you can see the new one I just created is here. And if we go back to Civi, you can see that new one was created. The new contact was created here. Part of why I like this one in a lot of ways more than some of the others I've shown you is because if I were to go back to that second way I showed you directly here, and I wanted to create a contact here, yeah, see, there you go. Now it's a different one, isn't it? I should be able to go down here to tags and groups and add the tag, new CMS user, save. Now I have 15 here. And by the time I get over there, it should have done it. Nope, it did not. Well, so there I go, trying to be braggy, showing you something different, and it doesn't want to work today. Okay, well. Oh, I bet it needs to run did I do tag instead of group? Oh, I clicked tag instead of group. That's why. Shoot, if I had done group correctly. There we go. Okay. Now it should have done it. Sorry, that was me. There we go. There we go. Now it's there. Okay. I clicked tag and I should have clicked group when I was creating. So the correct way to have done that would have been when I had created the new contact, go down here and do group. I did tag. So if I had done group instead, it would have done it right. The reason why that is neat also is because it's a way you can import users directly into Civi and create Drupal CMS users at the same time. And if you go into the settings and make sure you select the notify users here, you make sure you're selecting this, they'll all get emails and tell them they have accounts. So it's an interesting way of bringing a lot of people into your website at one time. Okay. So that really is the different methods by which we were going to show you to create Drupal and CiviCRM contacts at one time. Are there questions?
Yeah, Mark, I have a question. Could you tell me, some of these maybe seem a little bit obvious, but for each of the examples that you went through, could you describe like when or why you might use that method?
Well, a lot of it is going to depend on your website and how you're trying to bring people in and for what purpose.
Okay.
As an example, you could use, there's more than one of these methods that would work for some of the same circumstances. Okay. So like if you have a single, you gave me one circumstance, we could probably say that one or two, maybe even three of these methods would do it. And there's not necessarily a benefit to just one of those. It's more of multiple. So if we look at a site, kind of like what you're thinking about, where you're going to have users and you're going to have memberships. We aren't going to get memberships out of the Drupal registration form on its own.
Mm-hmm.
We might, for that purpose, choose to use a Drupal web form, because when we use the Drupal web form, if we go back to it, just go to this one, so it doesn't matter which one. We can add memberships right here to that web form as an option to do memberships. We can also do event registrations through web form if we wanted to go this route. One of the reasons why we might choose to use a web form over a Drupal, over a Civi profile is because we want certain information. Maybe we want certain information from Drupal or with Drupal in it. For example, maybe it's something to do with a product. If that product lives in Drupal Commerce, then we might choose to use a web form instead of going a more Civi route to do this. However, if you have a situation where your main focus is memberships, and that's your only focus is memberships, and there's no other thing, but you've got other organizations who are bringing in users and bringing in, say, affiliate organizations, as an example, would be a good time where you might want to go the more Civi route. So it really just kind of depends on the specific circumstances that you're looking at in that moment. And what are the other times when you might bring people in, or how other people might interact with your website?
Okay.
Yeah, there's not one solid answer. And in fact, on most websites we build, we have all of these available. And there are times when we might use one, and there are times when we might use others. So it's also possible that the website will have multiple ways people are registering.
Okay.
Johnson County, y'all are quiet.
We are. This is good.
Just kind of soaking it up.
Mhm.
We're noobs when it
Wait,
comes
yeah.
to
So, the person who's not here, Brett Williamson, he was kind of the big developer of our CiviCRM, and I was coming today to get a refresher.
now I was coming to
Understand.
learn because I'm new.
Well, yeah, Civi can get overwhelming at times.
Mhm.
And yes, again, my best tip, always go to there and
That's new.
just
I was
find
like,
it.
yeah, that's a good tip.
Yeah, that's always definitely something to do. And I forget and will go searching for something. Something else just to note too, with Civi, we are looking at everything right now as I am as a full admin and everything. You can ask your project manager to have them reduce the number of options that are in your menu. And while it's like, oh, I don't want to take them stuff away from me. Well, Grant, Amy, I know. Well, no, you guys might actually have a use case for that down the road. I'm just completely lying. Either of you might have a use case for Grant. Um, but if you were an organization that had no use case for Grant, and I have some clients who have no use, we just don't show it on their website. It's just one less thing to have to look through and to think about. So you can have this menu simplified, and it does make life easier. And to be honest, I also have a client who they don't, a lot of their users never even go there. We have buttons here because like actually I set these up as links that would go directly to it in case I just felt like being lazy. We have it set up like that on a client's website so that everything they want is from here and they never have to go into Civi and even think about it. And that's something else to think about.
Oh, that's nice.
Those are just my little tips for how you can have a better experience, especially with Civi and Drupal combination. Because between those two menus, there's a lot to know where is. Okay. Well, are there any other questions? Just the
I don't think
time.
so.
I don't think so. It's nice to know what all the different options are, just so that as we get into setting some of these up, I just, even if I can't remember what it is, I'll go, I know there was a thing with a thing. So yeah, sometimes just knowing that there are a number of options that do different things is just nice. So yeah.
For the benefit of Johnson County, Amy is with one of my clients. So there's a thing for a thing. Mark, where was it? Will be the next thing after that
Yeah.
if you can't remember.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Brian Daniels put together this list of places where you can find more information, learn more. The nature of the people on this call, the Square blog is definitely going to be a good choice. We do hope to have more training. These videos, this video and others will be also saved or are already saved on the website. Of course, you can always go to Drupal and Civi, their respective .org sites, if you like to do a lot of reading and sometimes get a little frustrated that they couldn't write simpler language. Absolutely. And of course, I always will have to recommend that Amy reach out to me and that Johnson County reach out to my Oklahoma sister for any questions that you have. Anytime you're stuck,
Sounds good. Yeah.
I have a client who occasionally just be like, knock, knock, Mark, I just need like 15 minutes and we'll hop on a Zoom and walk through something and we'll get it figured out. So